just let me just share some housekeeping rules. The event will be live streamed on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and we encourage questions from our audience. The online participants can write their questions in the chat box, and the audience in person can ask their questions in the Q&A session. Before beginning the discussion, we must recognize that that there is an urgent need to transition away from coal. This imperative basically aligns with the global commitments, which aims to safeguard our economy, environment, and public health. The recent COP28, which we all are aware of, concluded with an agreement which marked the beginning of the end of the fossil fuel era. It emphasizes deep emission cuts. It basically it's a global call to cut emissions by 43%, which resonates strongly, and it urges nations to triple their renewable energy capacity and double their energy efficiency improvements. The challenges regarding this are multifaceted, from economic viability of the retiring coal power plants to the environmental sustainability and public health. The commitment to meet short-term emission reduction targets, particularly concerning coal, are of paramount importance. Air pollution's impact on local communities and the associated health risks adds urgency to deal with this issue. There are various financing mechanisms, such as the JET piece, that aims to accelerate the coal phasing down, like the ETM, Energy Transition Mechanism. However, Pakistan faces challenges in regarding economic security, regarding economic issues, energy security, and infrastructure challenges in implementing a complete phase out of coal. If we see, the coal consumption in Pakistan basically boomed in the past decade. Its share went in power sector from 2.3% to a staggering 33%. The basic coal-related buildup in Pakistan is backed by the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. While we cannot deny the fact that these power plants have added immensely to the energy security situation in Pakistan by increasing the generation capacity, but now the time demands a different scene, which requires the transition away from coal because the climate impacts are getting worse. If we look at the floods of 2022, they were devastating. They impacted lives of more than 33 million people. So to curb the escalating severity of these climate impacts, it's imperative to curtail global carbon emissions and address the domestic environmental concerns. Our challenge is not just about assessing and affording energy, but also ensuring a sustainable and clean energy future for Pakistan. While we all acknowledge the eventual need to phase out coal power plants in Pakistan, but when we were asked about this thing, the simple question that pops in our mind is when and how. So to answer these questions, we have devised a strategy which can be used for an orderly retirement of coal power plants in Pakistan. This session is basically organized to share this strategy with you all and get your feedback regarding this. Now I would request Dr. Khalid Waleed to walk us through this. Now I would request Ms. Zainab Naim, who is Associate Research Fellow at SDPI, to share her welcome remarks.
Thank you so much, Zainab, and good morning, everyone. So as Zainab has already highlighted, the topic that we are discussing today, it is of paramount importance. Why? Because this is not a state when we are just going to talk about it or talk about challenges. Rather, this is a state of emergency, and important decisions needs to be taken regarding strategic roadmaps that we have to develop, especially after the recent development that took place at COP28. So at COP28, this year, this time COP28 marked a significant success story in a form of the text that was created. And in the text, the message that has been developed, it says that transitioning away from fossil fuels. So transitioning away from fossil fuels, this has never been highlighted before at COP20, at COPs, even by despite of the protest by civil society organizations and climate activists. The statement regarding fossil fuels was not very evident as it is now at COP28. So, in that context, especially for the countries like Pakistan, other developing countries, and the vulnerable countries, it is very important that we start to discuss how we can transition away, or not just transition away, but phase down coal specifically. Even after COP28, the emission gap report that was released highlighted that industrial emissions are playing a very critical role in exacerbating the climate change impacts. And even the land use and forestry emissions, they remained stable throughout 2021 till 2022, but the emissions from industrial sectors, they spiked. So that is again an alarming situation for us. And now talking about Pakistan or countries like Pakistan, especially transitioning away completely from coal is very difficult. I wouldn't say impossible, but at least it's very difficult, keeping in view the current economic geopolitical situation. That is not something we can do like suddenly, or we can take some decisive measures to do that. That is not possible. So also we are having CPEC projects, so it's very difficult as of now. But it is still not impossible, and we can come up with different strategies. And for that we need to think something out of the box. We need to divert from the traditional approaches that we have been taking for long. We have to divert from the short term plans that we are making. Rather, we need to come up with some long term strategies that can create some sustainability in our country, both economically and also in terms of environment. So in that perspective, blended financing options, different approaches such as for just and equitable development, clean energy transition diplomacy, just energy transition partnerships. These are some strategies on which Pakistan can start working on. And also, since we have committed in our nationally determined contributions that we'll be transitioning away from coal, so in that perspective, we need to start working now. And this is the time when we have to make some decisions rather than just mere talking. Apart from that, I think since coal is also creating impact in terms of air pollution, and air pollution is a problem that has like no boundaries. It is creating such a devastating impact in South Asia region, and still we are unable to do anything because it's a transboundary issue. But still, we have the options to do something within our country boundaries to reduce the industrial effluent emissions that are releasing and contributing to the air pollution. In that perspective, we need to come up with some local innovative strategies to reduce the pollution and emissions. Apart from that, also in terms of international financing that has declined and that is sometimes also subject to green investments, we need to come up with strategies on how we can invite investments from the international donors and development partners in projects that can work to abate the emissions coming out from the fossil fuel industry, specifically coal. So in that perspective, mitigation is very important, and also collective effort at community level and also at policy level, both needs to be aligned with the NDCs and also with the commitments that Pakistan needs to take at this moment to enhance energy security and clean energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Zainab, for highlighting all the challenges and opportunities regarding the coal phase out. Now, I would request Dr. Khalid Waleed to share with us the preliminary findings of the analysis. Over to you, Dr. Khalid.
Thank you so much, Zainab. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today at this very extreme sort of weather and very lovely sort of weather. Thank you. This is transitioning away from coal. We are aiming for an orderly, equitable, and just energy transition in Pakistan, particularly from the lens of early retirement of coal power plants. This is a very controversial sort of issue in Pakistan, but very imperative, as rightly mentioned by Zainab in his opening remarks. We definitely need at some point of time this sort of debate in happening in Pakistan to ensure just energy transition, particularly the happenings from COPs and COP28 recently and going into COP29 and COP30. This is sort of a Troika Mission 1.5. What it is raising the ambition, raising the potential. This is the Troika of UAE, Azerbaijan, Brazil, the subsequent hosts of COP29 and COP30. What they are aiming is that they want to achieve 1.5 degrees through raised ambition. And what raised ambition means is to explore alternatives and explore very, I would say, ambitious sort of targets and goals, particularly in terms of fossil fuel retirement. And that leads us to early retirement of coal debate in Pakistan as well. This is the message of, I'm not going to read all whole of it, but this is the message from the COP president, COP28 president, that the global warming exceeds 1.5 degrees whole last year for the first time. It is a stark warning that the world must act now. So we would need to devise some sort of a roadmap for just, orderly, and equitable energy transition so that we protect nature, we protect lives, livelihoods everywhere, and secure climate resilience, as well as the sustainable and equitable development. So this is the message emerging from COP28. In terms of COP28 and coal is not cool anymore. Firstly, the UAE consensus includes an unprecedented reference to transitioning away from all sort of fossil fuels and in energy systems in a just, orderly, and equitable manner in this critical decade to enable the world to reach net zero emissions by 2050 in keeping with the science. Second is that the governments also discussed the need for increased finance and effective policies to ensure a just and managed energy transition away from coal, which resulted in the coal transition accelerators and new members joining the PPCA, that is Powering Past Coal Alliance. What is this coal transition accelerator? This PPCA announcement, France together with Canada, European Union, Indonesia, Malaysia, Senegal, UK, US, Vietnam, and several other organizations, they joined PPCA, and they launched this accelerator for early transition from coal. It aims to share expertise, design new policies, including through best practices and lessons from all over the globe to unlock new sources of finances, how to generate public and private financing to facilitate this equitable and just energy transition from coal to clean energy. There is sort of three pillars of this initiative. First is a strategy to decrease the cost of capital for investment in clean energies. Second is the Coal Transition Commission that will propose options and solutions to unlock new sources of public and private finances, particularly in countries where there is unabated coal fleet and which is younger in age. Thirdly, a gold standard to measure and assess the climate and financial risks attached to private sector investments in new coal assets to be developed by OECD with the support of IEA. So which means multiple avenues of finances would be available in future, and there would be more and more debate happening around the coal retirement. This is sort of a context of Pakistan. We all know that we are facing multifaceted crisis, that is the 3E crisis, I always say. It is economy, energy, and environment in Pakistan. We face economic challenges. Simultaneously, we're facing unsustainable energy debt, circular debt, and increased share of fossil fuel and thermal power in Pakistan. Last is the environment. We all know that we are 8th most vulnerable country in terms of climate change adversities. 2022 floods, as we all know that millions of people affected. 30 billion USD were lost in terms of GDP loss. And again, the share of coal is increasing in power generation in Pakistan, which can be justified on many terms. But in terms of climate change, we need to address this issue right now. If we start this debate right now, the things would get better in the future for Pakistan in terms of coal retirement and linked issues. Well, coal and Pakistan, I would say that in 2007, 2008, Pakistan faced crisis in terms of accessibility. There was accessibility crisis, load shedding. We needed to expand our capacity, we did lucrative PPAs with coal power plants. They were sort of our saviors in terms of economic turmoil and energy crisis. But it created circular debt problem. Now we have arrived at another crisis, that is affordability crisis due to tariff increase, subsidies, capacity payment issue. But we are solving this affordability crisis with sort of another crisis by investing into local coal. That would might be a sustainability crisis for Pakistan by 10 years, 20 years down the road, because we are investing lots and lots of in coal. But in terms of climate change, we need to cater for that as well. So from accessibility crisis to affordability to sustainability, we need some sort of a alternative approach, alternative policy approach in terms of early retirement of coal, as well as an alternative option readily available for us. When we need it, we have it on our boards. This is the energy mix right now. Zainab rightly told you that fossil fuel is dominating about 28%, if I'm counting it right. Local coal is 16%, imported coal is about 12%, about 28% comes from coal. This is the ratio of other fossil fuels, 5, 10, 15, 17% comes from these RLNG and gas and FO plants. About 18% comes from nuclear, and about 6 or 7% comes from wind, solar, and bagasse plants. So this is the Pakistan's generation mix, highly tilted towards fossil fuels. We need to cater for that as well. This is the capacity charges in billion rupees. We can clearly see that the coal power plants, in terms of share in capacity charges, they are exceeding all the other plants. What are different golden handshake options? Basically, golden handshake is when you want someone to be retired earlier, you propose some sort of early incentives to him or her, so that it could get this golden handshake sort of scheme for early retirement. There are three sort of mechanisms, multiple sort of mechanism, but there are three prominent ones. First is just energy transition partnerships, rightly mentioned by Zainab, energy transition mechanism by Asian Development Bank, and this coal transition accelerator. I put a fourth one. I think I missed this. This one is coal to clean credits initiative, CCCI, recently developed in COP28 as well. This is by Asian Development Energy Transition Mechanism. They have ranked the coal power plants, basically fossil fuel plus coal power plants, on these 4 criterias: security scores, financial viability score, environment score, and just transition score. This is the sort of framework on which they use this for the early pre-feasibility analysis. They measured plants' impact on security of energy supply. They measured environmental impacts, damages, financial viability of plants, and the plant's impact on livelihood in terms of green jobs and in terms of job displacement. These are some of the variables they used: security of supply, environment impact, financial viability, just transition. Maybe Aman from ADB can elaborate this in further, if Aman is with us. Okay. In terms of multi-criteria analysis, this was the ranking of the coal power plants. I picked the coal power plants, the functional one, from the ranking. In terms of financial score, the Sahiwal imported coal, they came up as the suitable candidate. In terms of environmental score, again, the Sahiwal coal plant, the just energy transition score, Lucky Electric Power, and in terms of security score, it was Port Qasim plant. So this was the analysis done by ADB. In terms of this, in terms of coal power plant, the ranking was about this. Okay. The shadow pre-feasibility analysis by us. This is our report. Apart from those variables used by ADB, we have sort of extended this analysis, and we included some of the financial variables, including debt, equity, capital cost, capacity payments of a plant, updated tariff, return on equity, and operation and maintenance cost. In terms of environmental variables, we included agriculture yields of the area in which the plant is situated, groundwater contamination level, air quality, just energy transition. We done sort of a cradle to grave analysis, green jobs analysis, In terms of plant utilization rate, we used heat rate, plant efficiency, utilization rates, auxiliary power, and merit order for the analysis. In terms of methodology, we use this data envelope analysis. Data envelope analysis is a mathematical approach where we use linear programming and use a quantitatively assess to the relative efficiency of a set of entities or firms or plants in this case, considering the multi-criteria simultaneously. This DEA was originally derived from a concept of efficiency measure defined as the ratio between the weighted sum of outputs to the weighted sum of inputs so that we get this technical efficiency measure and we rank the plots on the basis of that as well. It is important to note that these weighted are varied and optimized for each entity so that we can have this heterogeneous sort of solution for heterogeneous plants for the best possible efficiency score. This is sort of an analysis of energy generated by plants. We can see that Thar coal block 1, it generated the highest amount of energy as compared to the other coal power plant in the year 2022-23 as mentioned in the State of Industry report. Capacity payments by plant, the Angro Power Thar received about 77 billion, followed by Sahiwal coal plant about 67 billion, Port Qasim about 36 billion, followed by China Power Hub, Lucky Electric, Thar Coal Block 1, and Thar Energy Limited. In terms of capacity payments per unit, the Thal Nova received about 50 rupee per unit, generated unit. The Sahiwal imported coal received about 23, followed by Port Qasim, China Power Hub, Lucky Electric Power, Thar Coal Block 1, Angro Power Thar, and Thar Energy Limited. In terms of emissions per plant, you can clearly see that the Thar Coal Block 1 emitted about 3.99 million. Is it million? Okay, million CO2 in 1 year. Okay. Followed by Angro Power Gen, Lucky Electric, Port Qasim, Sahiwal, China Power Hub, and Thar Energy Limited, and Thal Nova. In terms of utilization rate, China Power Hub was utilized about 94%, Angro Power Gen Thar Block 2, 86, Thar Coal Block 1, 81. You can clearly see that the Port Qasim is utilized only about 27%, Sahiwal imported coal about 51%. This is due to the financial constraint faced by these two plants on account of economic turmoil in the country and raised prices of imported coal. This is the age and remaining PPA duration of these plants. Sahiwal is about the oldest plant in Pakistan in terms of coal power plants, about 6 years of age. 24 years have been left in terms of PPA agreement, followed by Port Qasim, Angro Power Gen Thar Block 2, China Power Hub, Thar Energy Limited, Lucky Electric, Thal Nova, and Thar Coal Block 1. This is the debt, equity, and cost of these coal power plants. Obviously, these Sahiwal imported coal power plant, this is about 1.4 billion USD, and equity is about 361. The capital cost is about 1.6 billion USDs. This is debt analysis of Keel Saab, please. This is the debt analysis of these power plants. You can see that in terms of Sahiwal, you'll see that 4 years have been left and about 179 million USD is to be retired in terms of debt. In terms of China Hub, 329 million is left. In terms of Thal Nova, 312 million USD is left in terms of debt. In terms of Block 2, that is 171 USD is left and about 4 to 5 years in terms of debt retirement. Block 1 remaining principal amount is about 600 million. In terms of Port Qasim, 253 million. In terms of Lucky, about 537 million. And in terms of Thar Energy Limited, that is 279 million USDs to be paid back to the lenders. This is the updated ranking, sorry, rankings is misspelled, ranking of the plants. According to our analysis, expanding or building upon the analysis by Asian Development Bank, the Sahiwal imported coal power plants comes at top of it in terms of early retirement to build a case for it. These are some of the possible avenues of early retirement of coal, just energy transition partnerships, energy transition mechanisms, accelerators, and repurposing of coal power plants. And I guess that's about it. We are here to debate what sort of alternative measures we can achieve, we can debate around here so that we can have this alternative view when there is a need to have this early retirement of coal. We have options available on the table. So back to you, Zainab. Thank you so much.
Khalid, for sharing the COP28 developments and commitments, climate vulnerability situation in Pakistan, and explaining the 3Es approach regarding coal phase out and mechanisms for coal phase out, and the multi-criteria analysis-based strategy for retirement of coal power plants in Pakistan. Now, as we have been joined by a distinguished panel, now we'll have their perspective regarding our strategy. I would request our Mr. Ali Nawaz, who is the DG Coal at PPIB. So, what's your perspective, and how do you see this situation of retiring the coal power plants in Pakistan?
Thank you very much. If you go through the presentation already delivered by Mr. Khalid, I don't agree with the numbers he has shared with us. Actually, if you may go on the slide of generation mix, we have the generation mix in overall basket. Coal is around 12 to 13%. It's not 36%. Although we always support induction of green energy in the system. First, we need to understand why we had opted to go for coal. Before 2013, there was no coal, zero coal in Pakistan. Why we opted to go for coal? At that time, we had different options. We gone through various studies. Which one is the affordable option at that time? At that time, Thar was not also available. So through various studies, we concluded that only coal is the affordable option for us, being a cheaper option of electricity in Pakistan. Thereafter, after concluding those studies, we started induction of coal, and in our fleet, first unit was Sahiwal. It was inducted in 2017. Number you have shared, Dr. Khalid, with due respect, last year its dispatch was around 20%, even less than 20%. Yes, its utilization factor was around 20% or so. A reason why, because it lies in the load center, demand was there, and a huge loading capability was there. But unfortunately, because of unavailability of foreign exchange, we could not utilize it at full load. Then CPA, China Power Hub Generation Company, it was dispatched very less. Major reason was of the foreign exchange availability. Thereafter, number comes to Port Qasim project. Comparatively, we have dispatched much Port Qasim. Its dispatch level was around 30% or so. Reason being, we were importing Indonesian and South African coal. Blended coal was utilized. Because of its cheaper value, we utilized it at maximum. And its fuel cost component was around ₹16 or so per kilowatt hour. Again, in 2023, in February, TCB1, Thermal Block 1 Power Generation Company, achieved its COD, and thereafter, it was dispatched almost 100%. Although they were agitating to give them respite up to some extent so that they may be in a position to maintain their plant. But being the cheapest ever fuel, it is number 2 in the merit order of the economic merit order list prepared by NTDC, CPPA, and NTDC, NEPRA. So because of the cheapest ever, and the third thing, a very important point was that it was local coal-based power project. It has 100% savings in foreign exchange. Every imported coal power project uses almost $400 million to $500 million imported coal cost. So this was the huge saving. That's why TCB1 was dispatched. Actually, it has started its commercial operation in 5th February 2023. So almost we have completed 1 year. Then Engro was the number 3rd plant. Engro, Tail, and Thalnova, they were fully dispatched because from last year, we were facing acute shortages of foreign exchange availability in our country. And State Bank of Pakistan was not allowing dollars to procure more fuel. So we relied very much on coal-based power projects. The number after mine mouth power projects comes to the Lucky Electric Power Plant. It was number 5th on most probably on dispatch level. They were using blended coal of Indonesia and Thar. Therefore, their price was around 12 or 14 rupees per kilowatt hour. So we dispatched it. Now the thing comes that why we cannot afford to retire these projects earlier. Because our country is facing acute shortages and economical challenges we are facing currently. Unless we have sufficient dollars or sufficient renewable resource available, then we may automatically stop the dispatch of these plants. In this regard, Government of Pakistan in 2016 imposed a moratorium on the use of imported fuel-based power projects. So since 2016 and onward, we are not processing any imported fuel-based power project. There is an exception, one-time exception was given to RLNG projects, but thereafter, no any imported fuel projects is being processed by PPIB. However, in our portfolio, we are trying our level best to inject maximum renewable energy projects that might be hydro, solar, wind, or any other renewable project available. Even we are preferring bagasse-based power projects. In the planning made by NTDC under Indicative Generation Capacity Expansion Plan, currently our portfolio is around 36% energy generation from renewable resources, but we are going to extend it up to 60% by 2030. And we are continuously working on it. But again, the question comes about the intermittency of the renewable energy projects, because solar sometimes available, sometimes no solar radiation available, and similar is the case with the wind and hydropower projects. So for the system stability, we require base load power plants. For base load power plants, furnace oil, gas, and other fossil fuels, we are neglecting and ignoring them. And their availability is also doubtful. So we are preferring whatsoever available with us. Now coming to the technological points that these plants, how these plants were installed. Basically, these plants were installed at a price twice than the international prices. What were the reason? Why we paid higher prices and we are paying capacity payments? Why? The reason being, we installed flue gas desulfurization units in each plant, electrostatic precipitators, sofas, just to safeguard the environment. In this regard, in our fleet, coal power plants fleet, if you consider all the plants are very well equipped with FGD, and regarding NOxes, there is a very negligible. Coming to the international standards, we are following IFC and World Bank standards, so we are not following Government of Pakistan and PIPA rules regarding environmental standards. So all are the World Bank and IFC compliant standards. If we go for the technology, for the coal power plants, our neighboring countries, even India and China and Vietnam, if you check their technologies, they have very less supercritical power plants. But in Pakistan, what we are doing, we have supercritical plants and ultra supercritical plants. Lucky Electric Power Plant is an ultra supercritical power plant. If we go ahead, TCP1, there is not only supercritical, but it is an advanced supercritical technology-based power plant. So it not only reduces NOxes, SOxes, but it captures 99.9% particulate matters. So emission is 100% controlled. Regarding carbon capturing, advanced technology captures some of the CO2 as well. So we have paid huge amount while installing these plants just to safeguard our environment. For future to phase out these plants, I would emphasize either ADB or World Bank shall come forward and help us economically to stand on our foot. And how can they help us? Because I have one slide. This is International Energy Agency report. I can share with the participants as well. You see this report. The black portion is the coal in our neighboring countries. You see, and here is the Pakistan. You see, if it is a 1%, and we are going to phase out our 1% coal power plants, whereas 400,000 megawatt generation is from coal in our neighboring countries. We have just 5,000 megawatt, but we are running even less than 5,000 megawatt. So even then, we are ready to reduce our fleet as per our share. So we are not insisting that we will continue on generating coal-based power generation, but as per our share, we are ready and we can go forward. And this is the totally, and this is not my report. This is International Energy Agency's report 2021, and it's a World Energy report 2022. So I'm sharing with you. So keep it in record as well. Regarding in the concept paper, I'm sorry, whosoever has prepared that these are the death number and diseases that they have quoted. But on the other side, if you have a chance and you have visited Thar, where most of the coal power plants are lying, they have not created miseries, but the coal power plants has created comfort for the local people through CSR, corporate social responsibility. Roads has been developed, hospitals has been developed, schools has been developed. In 2015 and 13, there were the reports in the media that this number of children died because of unavailability of hospitals, because of unavailability of water. Now, thanks to these plants, through CSR, schools has been developed, hospitals has been developed, roads has been developed, and above all, those people were wandering throughout the Pakistan to get jobs. Now they have got a chance to get employment over at their doorsteps. Not only this, the ladies working over there, handicrafts were their only livelihood. Now they are driving their trucks and vehicles. And if you had a chance to visit her, you will see a paradigm shift over there. And at least I would say, thanks to these mining activities and coal power projects, which has created huge job opportunities, and no any disease or death reported so far, as far as my record and as per the news. And if you had a chance, kindly share it with me. So no report has been so far reported, and all mitigation measures are there. Even there was a dream. Nobody was thinking that in a drought-like situation in Thar, fish can be grown. But now this is a reality. You can see that fish has been grown over there. So thank you. And then again, if some questions arise, then we will suitably respond.
Sure,
Thank you.
sure. Thank you.
That you are agreeing that.
Yes, we can, up to our share. Yes.
Thank you, Ali Nawaz Saab, for explaining the developments of coal-related projects in Pakistan. And you rightly mentioned that we do need financing for retiring the coal power plants in Pakistan. Now I'll move towards our next panelist for today. That is Mr. Asadullah Saab from CPPAG. He is the specialist market pricing and simulations. Asad Saab, how do you see the retiring the coal power plants in Pakistan? And Asadullah?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Zainab, for giving me this
You're
opportunity.
online.
Uh,
Uh,
sorry, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Let me just
Okay.
complete the question.
Okay.
So I just want to know, how do you see the strategy of retiring the coal power plants in Pakistan? And considering the imperative to transition away from coal, how do you see the evolving dynamics in the power market?
Sure, sure. First of all, Zainab, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate the work you have done. Basically, well, the public sector is uh, basically at the moment not thinking about this important challenge coming forward. Well, emissions is considered, or this energy transition mechanism, or this carbon footprint is considered as an international challenge now. And overall, as you have told, that the countries are working in this regards. Uh, Keeping in view the local economic perspectives, environmental sustainability is at the moment not our first challenge or not our first priority. So at the moment, energy access and energy affordability is the basically main challenge we are considering at the moment. But aligning both things, energy access and energy affordability, in alignment with carbon neutrality or environmental sustainability, will option, considering the basically international practices or international focus at the moment. Uh, at the moment, the planning perspectives or planning opportunities or planning practices carried out in Pakistan, we are not at the moment including the cost of externalities, including deterioration of air quality, deterioration of underground water quality in our planning exercises. So this, I hope the report or the initiative you have taken will help us in including these costs related to environmental aspects in our planning practices through the regulatory mechanism, approved regulatory mechanisms. This is the future at the moment, environmental sustainability. But this must be, first of all, affordable. Secondly, it will not pose any risk to the energy security, as mentioned by the previous speaker. So local coal resources are considered as stable energy suppliers. If we are shifting towards renewables, then it must not pose any risk to the energy security of the country. Secondly, and the last point that I want to make on this, that local core resources, they have too limited impact on the foreign exchange reserves or the economic security. So yes, not the initiative or the solution to this problem. It must not pose any impact on the foreign, any additional or any incremental impact on the foreign exchange reserves. Thank you. Well.
Thank you, Asad. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that any initiative that we do for environmental sustainability should be affordable and keeps in mind about the accessibility issue. Thank you. Now I will invite our next panelist, Mr. Ehtisham Khattak. Mr. Ehtisham Khattak is the Senior Project Officer at ADB. Ehtisham Sab, how do you see this transitioning away from coal, and how do you envision the role of international financing institutions and their support mechanisms in facilitating an orderly retirement of coal and fostering a sustainable energy landscape in Pakistan? Over
Thank
to you,
you.
Ehtisham Sab.
Thank you, Zainab. Am I audible?
Yes, you're completely audible.
Okay, so as you see that uh, we do see a potential here, but we do understand the government's predicament that the coal generation here is quite not that significant, and to move towards the energy transition for coal. So, and as also by the esteemed speaker who gave the presentation, it took what the pre-feasibility was done under ADB funding, the results from that funding, and there, apart from coal, we also included high carbon power plants as well. So it's not just only coal we should be focusing on, but also on the high carbon emission power plants, which are to retire. But we have to also include that as a part of our discussion of energy transition, because the objective is not to transit towards no coal, but the objective is the energy transition towards a more clean fuel, which is gas. Um, so I think we should also look at from Pakistan perspective in a more holistic manner, not just restricting ourselves to coal. Having said that, there are concerns, and this was also when we were doing the study, there were concerns by the third community upon uh, the explorations have also had the environmental effects on the population who lived in that area. I think that should be addressed. We received a lot of, from the third community, we received a lot of uh, emails, letters, asking us to, work towards de-energization of these power plants. So the government also has to address their concerns. It cannot be just ignored, because, it's just like getting gas from Sui, and then, not addressing their concerns. So it's the resources wherever they are available, the community should be taken into confidence on how to utilize those resources. Uh, Regarding this, how to go further about it, what the I think there should also be more integration at the government level between the Ministry of Climate Change, Ministry of Energy, Power Division, Ministry of Planning. And this whole discussion of transition of coal should not be only restricted to the power plants. Industries are also using coal. So I think just to limit ourselves only to power plants, and it's not, I think it's not the right way of approaching this issue. So we have to be Pakistan specific and unless we are not, and we just copy what has happened in Indonesia or Vietnam or elsewhere, this will not succeed. So these are my 2 cents on it, and ADB is willing to work towards more clean fuel utilization, more climate change thing, and we will definitely uh, work with the government to implement it. But however, the initiative has to come from the government. So that are my 2 cents on it.
Thank you, Ehtisham Sab. Okay, please go ahead. We do have a question for you.
Mr. Sham, if you are rejecting the coal, then why ADB has financed Jamshoro coal power plant, and why ADB has financed many other projects in the world? Could you please clarify?
Okay. Yeah, that is a very good question and a very direct question. Thank you for that. The Jamshoro coal power plant is the power, what we financed was in 2013. It was approved. At that time, the then government was more inclined to get more coal power plants in Pakistan, and we wanted a power plant, supercritical power plant, to set a standard for that, a model coal power plant with less environmental impact. And that is why, as a special case, and let me tell you that ADB wide, this was the last power plant which was approved. And after that, we have not financed any power plant. As far as ADB funding of coal power plants in other parts of Asia, I think that is a bit question which I may not be able to answer because of my limited role. But definitely the government ADB works with ADB or World Bank or any IDB works with the government, and they are not here to dictate the priorities of the government. Rather, they are here to help them to achieve the policies they have formulated.
Thank you, Ehtisham. You rightly pointed out that the broader objective is not to transition away from coal, it's to transition towards the low carbon fuels. Now I'll move towards our next panelist, Mr. Michael Williamson. Mr. Michael Williamson is the Chief of Section Energy Division at UNSCAP. Michael, my question to you is, what's your input on regarding the coal retirement initiatives, particularly in terms of repurposing early retirement and economically feasible policy alternatives for Pakistan from a regional perspective? Over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you and to join all the distinguished speakers. I think this is an incredibly important conversation that we're having. And it's really great to see the efforts of STPI and all of the stakeholders in Pakistan towards addressing this question. It's one of the toughest questions we're facing regionally and indeed around the world. It's not just Pakistan facing this question. Many other countries are trying to tackle it as well across the Asia-Pacific region. And I've learned a lot just about listening to you because, of course, context is really important. And the context of Pakistan will be different to the context of other countries. I think the principal point of difference that we see here is that Pakistan has just begun its coal-fired power generation journey. It is very, very early in the process. And as the previous honorable speaker pointed out, it's not a huge part of the energy mix. It's been growing rapidly since 2015. But compared to other countries, coal doesn't take a massive role in the power generation sector in the country. It has been growing. And so really it's the key question is what happens from this point forwards? Does it continue to grow, or does it stabilize, or does it go backwards? Of course, we know that coal is a very special case in the climate change framework. It's special because it's a very carbon intensive fuel. And once you build coal-fired generation assets, they tend to stick around for a very long time. And that's really the challenge that Pakistan is facing with this very young fleet. No country can afford to retire an asset that's just a couple of years old, that's just a couple of years into its 30 or 40-year project lifespan. When we look at countries that are successfully phasing out coal, countries like Australia, the United Kingdom, these are countries that built these projects in the 1970s and 1980s. They're coming to the end of their useful life. They're being decommissioned or mothballed, sometimes a couple of years early. But this is a relatively easy step. In Pakistan, it's a very difficult step. And I would suggest that the key thing is really to look at what's remaining in the pipeline, if at all possible, not to construct what's left in the development pipeline. As for this existing 5 gigawatt of capacity, one would need to look at what is the financial burden of early retirement versus investing the same financial resources in other types of energy, in low carbon energy. So that is really the key point. As we go forwards, of course, Pakistan energy consumption will grow. And I think there's two really important things for consideration to look at that growth. The first is energy efficiency. How can we make sure that we really redouble efforts on energy efficiency? We meet the global SDG target and doubling improvement in energy efficiency, because of course, reducing demand, curtailing demand is a really important part of the climate response. The second issue is renewables. And here Pakistan comes from a position of strength. Unlike many countries in our region, Pakistan has these very, very high quality renewable energy resources. So you're sitting on a very important wind resource, a very important solar resource. And those resources needs to be developed. Now, that might take a couple of decades, and it might require a lot of investment. For example, a lot of the solar might need grid extensions, some of the wind also. These are very long-term and costly investments. But over time, these renewables, as the costs continue to drop, can become a really important backbone of the Pakistan power system architecture. And of course, how does that interact with the coal-fired power stations? Indeed, in the future, many coal-fired power stations may need to operate in a slightly different environment. I think the previous speaker referred to that about dispatchability and baseload. In some countries in our region, we see that coal is playing an increasing role as a flexible output, being able to vary the output of coal-fired power stations to match the variability that we see in wind and solar. So I don't see that, with the current 5 gigawatts that we have at the moment in Pakistan, a lot of early retirements. Many countries are talking about this, and they're talking about how to extract more economic value out of these assets, the repurposing. An example might be that when you retire a coal-fired power plant, you use the land for wind and solar, and you use the existing grid infrastructure, you use the land that's available. I don't know if that's particularly applicable in Pakistan, but I would really go back to the key point is that I'm a bit perplexed why renewable energy hasn't picked up faster. Looking at the pie chart that Dr. Khalid presented to us, wind and solar is almost like in the error margins. And I think wind and solar are really path-dependent technologies. The more you develop and the more you localize the supply chains, the more the costs come down. So I think the potential is there to drive down the costs. One thing that would help a lot, of course, is power grid interconnecting with the neighbors, because this is something that we are working with a lot of countries, particularly in Southeast Asia. I mean, if you even consider somewhere like Singapore, which has got very limited access to renewables, it's importing a lot of renewable power from the neighboring ASEAN countries. On that topic, we're hostage to geopolitics. As energy professionals, there's not a lot that we can do about this geopolitical situation, other than to share with our colleagues working in this area that in the cost-benefit calculus of advancing diplomacy, advancing geopolitical relations, there's a huge benefit in the energy sector. If we can share renewable energy resources across borders, it becomes a cheaper system, a more robust system, and indeed a cleaner system. So thank you once again, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for highlighting that financial analysis is required to retire coal power plants, firstly. And definitely, we need to focus on energy efficiency and renewable energy improvements and capacity building in Pakistan. Now, I would like to I would like to invite Dr. Khalid Wadeed. He would like to add a few slides to his previous presentation.
Thank you so much, Zainab, again, and thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Michael. Pardon my inefficiency. I shared the earlier version of my presentation, which doesn't include some of the slides. Can you please share? Okay, this was the fourth one would like to highlight is that one of the golden handshake option in terms of early retirement of coal plants is coal to clean credits, which is a very, I would say, nascent sort of initiative emerging from COP28. It is CCCI, coal to clean credit. What it does is, I would say, okay. These are some of the possible avenues of early retirement of coal, building upon my previous take on it. It is just energy transition partnerships, ETMs, CCCI, and repurposing. In terms of discounted cash flow analysis of this Sahiwal coal power plants, if we opt to retire this plant after the 10 years of its service, it would have the economic value of about 0.874 billion USDs. But if we want to retire it immediately, it would cost around 1.633 billion USD. These estimates are almost aligned with a previous study done by IFA, International Energy Economics and Financial Analysis Institute study. In terms of carbon reduction or emission reductions, if we retire these coal power plants after 10 years, it would be around 48 million tons of CO2. And if we retire it immediately, that would be 65 million tons of CO2 equivalent. It is equivalent to 1.36 billion USD in terms of carbon credits. If we consider the base price of carbon credit around 20 USDs. Why I'm saying this, that we can use this clean to coal credit initiative, although it is a recently started initiative. What it does, it provides over 90% of coal power plants that are shielded from competition due to regulation or long-term contracts that guarantee their returns, resulting in many coal plants having no financial motivations to retire early, which is the case of Pakistan as well. In response to this, the CCCI initiative is designed in such a way to develop a world first project approach to accelerate this coal retirement initiative in terms of managed and equitable sort of way, so that we can phase out these coal power plants and incentivize the coal plant owners through carbon credit mechanisms. The revenue generated from selling the CCCIs clean coal to clean credits could provide an alternative option for equitable, manageable, and sustainable sort of transition away from coal power plants, and it will definitely support the transition of workers and communities away from the fire power plants. So I always say that chaos is a ladder, and Pakistan is facing this multifaceted chaos, and where people respond to incentives, we need to provide incentives to coal power plants so that we have this orderly and managed and just energy transition partnerships taking Pakistan forward in the direction of renewable energy and so on and so forth. With this, I would say that implementation of this could not be done alone. We need to follow a journey in terms of introspection, where we need to have this need assessment going on, resource assessment. Then we need to integrate, we need to indigenize, we need to incentivize, and we need to have this inclusive approach. With this 6 eyes approach, I think in future, we would be in a better place to implement this framework in a climate compliant sort of manner and achieving economic development at the same time. With this, thank you so much again. Back to you, Zainab.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid, for sharing the potential financing options for early retirement of coal power plants in Pakistan. We have been joined by Mr. Zafar Mahmood Mirza. He's the Deputy Chief Fuel Energy Wing at Ministry of Planning, Development and Special Initiatives. Sir, before asking any question, I would like to give you a quick insight what have been discussed so far. We have discussed the COP28 developments and commitments regarding the coal phase down and the climate vulnerabilities in Pakistan, and the multi-criteria analysis-based strategy developed by SDPI for retiring coal power plants in Pakistan, and possible avenues for retiring these plants. So now my question is, in light of your experience, especially regarding in the fuel sector, how do you envision the retiring of fossil fuels overall, particularly focus on coal, and the global imperative to transition away from coal? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. So nice of you for your input and discussion as well. To me, it's very important that our gas fuels, clean energy is very important to use at the moment, and this overall scenario is very different. But first of all, we have to see what we have in our gas fuels, especially availability of gas. So as we know that energy demand regarding gas fuel is increasing day by day, and our gas fuels are also being depleted. So we have to care about whatever we have potential in our country, in our hands. We have to utilize all those potentials efficiently and effectively, while keeping in view CO2 emission as well. So we have big coal resources. It's the God-gifted resources. So we have to utilize this efficiently. So we can't, get rid of this coal immediately. But with the passage of time, we can shift this transition. Alternate, we have to produce as well our availability of alternate fuel resources, because we have to import our LNG so much, very expensive. So it's available resources at the moment coal we have to utilize, but because there are so many, China is also producing so many power generation from the power plant, coal power plant, and they also committed that 2040, 2050 we will utilize, because we have planted all these power plants. But while keeping in view the the safety measures, how we can reduce carbon footprints. So this is very important to keep utilize coal while keeping tangible steps to reduce carbon footprints. So this is, in my viewpoint, we have to utilize all resources efficiently, effectively, while taking the consideration of COP28 and as all the available other, sanction and what our rules and regulation, we have to follow all those implemented in Pakistan at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Zafar Saab. You rightly said that we need to focus on the local available resources, and this coal transition should be orderly. We cannot do it, just immediately. Exactly. So now I'll move towards the next panelist, Basit Gauri. Mr. Basit is the Manager Research and Networks at Renewables First. Basit, would you like to share your perspective regarding the coal retirement strategy?
Yeah, thank you, Zainab, and thank you to all the esteemed panelists, who joined us here. And I'm really glad to our esteemed colleagues from PPIB specifically, for joining us in this discussion. I think that's really important in terms of, coming up at the consensus building path. So overall in this discussion, I'd like to touch upon three basic points. So first one is basically to have a little bit clarity on our directions where we're going towards globally specifically. This is really significant. We've been trying to focus on renewables, but at the same time trying to, hang on to the coal in parts of our future development as well. We need to realize it does have an impact about how Pakistan position itself globally. And we have seen that in last COP. COP28, in which we saw this target for tripling of renewables. Now imagine Pakistan already has like targets of almost 5 times of the renewables already. So we should have been, spearheading that kind of an initiative, and instead, we were at the back seat on specifically on that. So I think it's first thing that we have to understand is that it's not just about local decisions and locally what we do. It also impacts our global position, about how we fight our case, even for the loss and damage fund that we are arguing for it. It's about leading by practicing, leading from the front. So I think we have to realize that, in order to, in terms of the future trajectory where we go towards, we need to do or we need to ask for what we are ourselves doing back home. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I think one thing I think in terms of the phase out, one thing that needs to happen is a lot of consensus building and realignment of narratives among the key stakeholders. And most probably, most of us are joined here as well. And we also had a discussion like this a couple of weeks back with the SDPI at one of the other events, and we see that there's some I would not say misconception, but there's some narrative that needs to be realigned. So I know our esteemed colleagues, pointed out about our share in electricity generation, which is so coal's share in our electricity generation as compared to our peer countries. Yes, it is very low, but we need to look at the trends as well. In past 9 years, we have 72% reduction in coal capacity globally. So what is that trend telling us? In 2022 only, we only had two financial closure of coal power plants. We don't have any more Chinese financing available for coal after the coal moratorium announced by the Xi Jinping. So we have to realize that there are several trends which point towards, at least at the bare minimum, no new coal capacity being introduced. And I really question about, if such capacity is added in the future, where will the financing will come from? Second, I think another narrative that's that often comes up is looking this ETM as a regulatory instrument. It's not a regulatory instrument. The four instrument that Khalid Saab talked about, all of these are financial instruments. These are bankable commercial transactions which require mutual negotiations of both the parties, not just being enforced upon. So it does require agreement by even the private sector, the investors, that it becomes commercially bankable, then it proceeds. So I think we need to realize that here it's not about renegotiating by enforcement. It's about mutually renegotiating about a more commercial, bankable, feasible solution. Then we also, I think, two or three more narratives that we often hear in this discussion is about, need for the base load, the grid capacity of Pakistan, when we're talking particularly here. I think what we need to, start realizing it is that we need to start building our grid according to our generation fleet, rather than building a generation fleet according to how much our grid can assimilate, specifically for the future planning. Because I think our planning for the whole power sector is based on least cost under the IG submodeling, and that essentially, looks at only the generation aspect. So we should essentially be defining our grid enhancement based on the generation capacity. Another, I think I would not say misconception again, but another argument that comes up, it was also pitched by one of the former colleagues as well, is, coal as an untapped reserves. I mean, so all of that area, the solar is, coming all day round, 24/7, not 24/7, but in the days, 365 days, almost a year. Wind is blowing all the time. So those are also untapped reserves that we are wasting. So I think we need to look at it in a very different manner, rather than how we used to look at it, about looking, this all fossil fuel as an untapped reserves. The renewables are also being untapped at the same time. So I think these are some of the narratives that we need to realign, in order to have a more open discussion about it. And lastly, I think going forward, we also have to realize that all these analysis that ADB has done, that the SDPI has done, and the other international partners have done, we're talking about coal retirement at like the last 5 to 10 years of plant's life. So it's not going to happen anyhow right now, because of the newer fleet that is available. So all those analyses are asking for something that's going to happen about, at the bare minimum, about 8 to 9 years after 2023. So we need to understand that it's not going to have a drastic impact in terms of, like, turning over or closing the power plant overnight or anything like that. So I think these are the few of the things that needs to be, highlighted upfront, so that we can be more open about discussion and actually find out, okay, what it costs, what is actually the cost of phasing out of these projects that we are talking about, or what is the quantum that is needed. And that's where I think the role of development partners and multilateral becomes very pertinent, about how much they can feed into assimilating that cost and making the transaction bankable. So with that, I would end. Thank you, Zainab.
Thank you, Basit. Thank you. You rightly mentioned that realigning the narrative building is the most required aspect for retiring the coal power plants. Now I'll move towards the next panelist, Mr. Akil Jaffrey. Mr. Akil Jaffrey is the Director Policy at PPIB. Sir, how do you see this retiring of coal power plants in perspective, and a special opinion on the economic and infrastructure challenges regarding this?
Thank you, Fatma, Zainab, and it's a pleasure for me to be here in this discussion. I think I'll say that Pakistan missed the bandwagon of economic development based on coal power generation, at least by a couple of decades. But the good thing is that the world did it at the cost of environment. But fortunately, at the time in which we are living in, the government of Pakistan is cautious about its responsibilities, and as Nawaz Saab mentioned, our coal-based generation we have all the checks and balances in place, and we are careful and cautious about that we don't harm the environment as much as the world has done utilizing their coal resources. For the government of Pakistan, the three main objectives right now are affordability, sustainability, and energy security. That's why the government is looking to explore all the indigenous resources wind, solar, hydro being the foremost ones, and that is why the government has a target of achieving at least 60% share from these resources in next at least by 2030 or 31, 32. But at the same time, uh, we have imposed a moratorium on imported coal. We are doing away with the thermal power generation using fossil fuels. What options are we left with? We need some base load power generation in order to have a stable grid supply. So local coal and probably nuclear are the only options available. This discourse should continue, that we have to, as the Sham Saab brightly mentioned, that the idea is to decarbonize our generation and economy. It's not specifically just shifting towards just closing down our recently developed coal power plants, because that's not an easy task. As Michael also mentioned, that our coal power plants are in the initial stages of their operation, and it is going to be a huge financial burden. It might be a huge financial burden on the government to close down and transition away from these coal power plants, and that will hit the sustainability and affordability portion of the government's policy objectives, because affordability, I think, is at the forefront of our development plans. That's the main criteria for the IGCEP, in which, on the basis of which the IGCEP iterations are run. But moving ahead, we, as mentioned by the speakers, that we should target the low-hanging fruits, decarbonize the industry. We are low on gas, local gas, so which is also required. And if we want to shift away from coal-based power generation and utilize maximum and enhance the share of renewables over and above 60%, then I think the options are either we should have to go for cross-border electricity trade that would provide the ample reinforcement and to the grid, in which we can have the higher share of intermittent resources, or we have to modernize our grid infrastructure with deploying compensators and battery banks, which is again not a cheap solution. So I think the transition will take some time, and going forward also, as per the IGCEP analysis, the share of coal in the future is also not increasing. In fact, it is decreasing from current 17-18%. It will go down to 13%. We need stable supplies from base load generation, but this discourse should continue, and we need to look for technically and economically feasible options to increase the share of renewables in decades to come, and decrease our dependence on any carbon-based fuels. Maybe in future there are technologies being developed in the labs, which might assist us in doing so. Utilizing the same carbon-based resources in a much efficient and environmentally friendly manner. So yes, this transition of retiring coal power plants is not on the cards and cannot be done in the near future, but in the longer run, the share of renewable will increase and our dependence on the fossil fuels will decrease. Thank you.
Thank you, Akil Saab. And we definitely agree that to phase out coal, we need to significantly enhance the share of renewables. Now, I would go towards our next panelist, Mr. Amanullah Mengriu. He is the energy finance expert. He works previously as a national coordinator at the ADB. Aman Saab, I would like to know your perspective regarding the retirement plan of coal power plants in Pakistan. And also, as an energy finance expert, how do you see this transition in terms of the different financing mechanisms, JETPs, and ETMs? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, SGPI, and thank you all the panelists for sharing their views. So I'm the last one, so I get to hear everyone out. So I'm not going to take a long time because the time is running out. Everyone raised like very valid points. So just to sum up, so I'm coming from an experience being part of ADB's pre-feasibility study for the energy transition mechanism in Pakistan. So I was the national coordinator for that. So from my experience, what I can share, so there are like few prerequisites, as rightly mentioned by other panelists as well. So firstly, we need the willingness of the power plant. So if the power plant is willing, I think that only then we can move to the next step of having to retire a power plant. Next would be the political willingness. So from our experience from this 1 year long pre-feasibility study, what I can share, like the energy transition, it was like more of a political transition. So there were multiple political changes happening throughout the country that this was never taken up. This was never the priority. It started as a priority, but then it was left out. So political commitment, I would say, is very important if one wants to retire any power plant. And the last would be the financial commitment. The fiscal commitment specifically by the government is huge. So given there is already huge circular debt outstanding, so if a power plant is willing, they want to bail out, you can say, out of the country, saying, okay, we will like wrap up our coal power plant in 5 years or 10 years, and then we move out. So there are like huge settlements for the government of Pakistan that they need to make. Firstly, there would be the arrears that they are already outstanding, and then there will be the incentive part. So from like looking at government accounts, we don't really see if that's anything feasible for the government to even pick up. And then the third part of the funding comes from the ETM fund, and then there are the other mechanisms out there internationally which finance the early retirement. So firstly, there's a fiscal commitment required. So it's not that the foreign money is going to come in and they are going to just like pick up all the debt and pick up everything, and then the coal power plant will retire. It's not going to happen. And the lastly, since government priority is the affordability, uh, undertaking any transaction, the tariff will increase. The electricity tariff, one way or another, through financing or through, you can say, any other circular debt settlements, the tariff for the consumer will increase. So I don't see personally, this is my opinion, I don't see this being taken up by the government as their priority for early retirement. So just bottom line, just to sum up, I think there are issues with Pakistan's power system, which we can say like reforms before transition. So we need to reform our system. So we attract investment in our renewables, we increase their share, and transitioning comes later. So there are like these two. Uh, we need to reform the system to make it more attractive. So investment comes in, and then we think about transition maybe when the power plants are much older. So that is all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aman. You rightly pointed out that political and physical commitments are needed for coal retiring. Now, the floor is open for question and answer sessions now. We're also taking online questions. Please write your questions in the chat box.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मेरा क्वेश्चन तो नहीं है, इट्स जस्ट ए बिट कमेंट्री ऑन दिस टॉपिक। द लास्ट पैनलिस्ट ने जिस तरह से बताया कि पॉलिटिकल विल जो है दैट इज द मेन हिंड्रेंस व्हाइल ट्रांजिटिंग फ्रॉम फॉसिल फ्यूल टू द रिन्यूएबल्स। तो मेरा नाम उबैदुल्ला है और एसटीपीआई का एक छोटा कजन है सीपीडीआई में, उसमें काम करता हूँ सर। और आई एम मैनेजर जस्ट एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन देयर। तो मैं जो है आई एम इन्वॉल्व हूँ पॉलिटिकल एंगेजमेंट के हवाले से जो है। तो मेरा जो है वो कमेंट्री जो है ना वो ये है कि द लेसन लर्न जो है वो ये कि हमने 2018 की जो पॉलिटिकल कमिटमेंट थी उनको कंपेयर किया और उसको एनालाइज किया, और उसके बाद हमने सजेशन दी, और अभी 2024 में जो इलेक्शन हुए हैं इसमें जो पॉलिटिकल कमिटमेंट टू द मैनिफेस्टोज आई हैं हमने उसको भी एनालाइज किया है। तो गुड थिंग इज दिस के जी टेक्निकली जो है वो अब कोई भी पार्टी जो है वो कोल के ऊपर जो है वो उसने कमिटमेंट नहीं की, उसने उस पे बेस नहीं किया। किसी एक पार्टी ने भी ये नहीं कहा कि हम जो है वो कोल को एज ए सब्स्टिट्यूट देख रहे हैं टू एनर्जी और नया जो है वो प्लांट इंस्टॉल करेंगे। ये बहुत बड़ी सक्सेस है सिविल सोसाइटी की जो है। लेकिन मैं इसको ये इस तरह से नहीं देखता कि सिविल सोसाइटी की सक्सेस है। जब हम उनसे मिल रहे थे, द मूवर एंड शेकर वाज नॉट द सिविल सोसाइटी दैट वी वर pressing them कि जी move on from fossil fuel to the renewables या coal phase out कर लें। जो मूवर एंड शेकर थे इसमें जो है जिससे वो कर रहे थे वो थी प्राइस ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी। I met almost all the manifesto head of these all top political parties, 7 political parties जो पार्लियामेंट में करती। They were only having one question. The question was हमें सस्ता जो है वो ईंधन कहाँ से मिलेगा, हमें सस्ती बिजली कहाँ से मिलेगी, आप हमें ये बताएं।
So the question from the politicians to you?
The politicians, एक ही क्वेश्चन है। They
have these departments like PPIB.
मैं उसी पे आ रहा हूँ सर।
They can easily tell them.
कि वो ये कहते हैं कि जी आप हमें सस्ती बिजली कहाँ से मिल सकती है, आप हमें ये बताएं। डिफरेंस जो मुझे गैप लगता है जब हम इस तरह का जो फेज आउट करते हैं, जो मुझे गैप लगता है वो ये लगता है कि टेक्निकली हम ठीक कहते हैं, और वो जो है जो पॉलिटिकल फोर्सेस हैं, वो जो पॉलिटिकल यहाँ पे डिसीजन मेकर बैठे हुए हैं, उनका जो क्वेश्चन है ना, वो क्वेश्चन ये है कि हमें फौरी तौर पे लोगों को बताने के लिए कि जी हम क्या करें। बट दे कम आउट ऑफ दिस होल क्राइसिस ड्यूरिंग 2024 इलेक्शन कि सोलर लगा देते हैं। सोलर एवरीवन वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट सोलर, किसी सोलर को हम लोग इंक्रीज कर देते हैं। उनके मैनिफेस्टोज में भी सब ने ये कहा कि हम सोलर लगा देते हैं। नोइंग दिस कि अच्छा जी ऑन ग्रिड सोलर जो है वो मजीद जो है वो हमारा जो इस वक्त मॉडल है एनर्जी का जो है उसको और ज्यादा वर्सन करेगा। ऑफ ग्रिड अगर जाएंगे तो अच्छा, अब ऑन ग्रिड ऑफ ग्रिड जो है उनको ये समझ नहीं आती कि जी हम लोग किस तरह से इसको जो है वो करें, मैनेज करेंगे। तो मुझे जो गैप लगता है कि अगर हम लोग सक्सेसफुली ट्रांजिट करने की तरफ अगर जा सकते हैं और ये समझते हैं कि हम इसमें हिस्सा डाल रहे हैं, तो फिर वो ये है कि हमें उनको जो है वो छोटे छोटे स्टेप्स पे पाथ पे बना के देना पड़ेगा कि जी अगर आप इतना कर रहे हैं तो फिर इतना जो है वो इससे सेव हो सकता है, अगर आप इतना करेंगे तो इससे इतना सेव होगा। तो अगर आप जो है वो सोलर पे जा रहे हैं तो आपको जो है वो ऑन ग्रिड सोलर नहीं जाना, क्योंकि इस वक्त जो पॉलिसी है टू इम्पोर्ट द जो प्लेट्स हैं वो अगर आपने उस पर ड्यूटी खत्म कर दी है, कम कर दी है, तो उससे जो है वाले जो है अब सोशलिस्ट थोड़ी सी फिलोसफी की तरफ मैं आ रहा हूँ कि जो ऑलरेडी अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं वो ही वहां से फिर जो है वो उसको यूटिलाइज करके सस्ती बिजली जो है वो ले रहे हैं। तो ये जो है ये वाला जो गैप है इसमें निगोशिएट उनके साथ करने की जरूरत है, एंगेज करने की जरूरत है विद सम प्रैक्टिकल जो है वो सॉल्यूशंस के साथ कि ये इतने परसेंट कर लें, यहाँ पे कर लें ये हो जाएगा, इतने परसेंट कर लें यहाँ पे ये हो जाएगा। तो मेरा तो यही ख्याल है कि अब हमारा जो अगर हम सक्सेस करना चाहते हैं तो हमें जो है वो पॉलिटिकल एंगेजमेंट को जो है वो मीनिंगफुल बनाना होगा, और वो मीनिंगफुल तभी हो सकता है कि हम प्रैक्टिकल सॉल्यूशंस के साथ जो है वो उनके साथ एंगेज करें। दैट्स इट।
Thank you, Bedullah Saab. Any other questions?
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I am Ali Jaber. I'm working at STPI as media coordinator. I'm also a former journalist. My question is that when we see the West or even the European countries, when it comes to their own energy security, they disregard all those commitments and they turn towards coal powered fire projects. But why Pakistan is it already has a very minuscule share in its energy mix, and why it is focused on discussing this retiring of coal power projects? I agree that it is environmentally hazardous, But if we convert this coal into some other, any like gasification of this coal into other petrochemical material that can be used as a fuel, and World Bank was once working on this to convert the thirst that resource into gasification. So this will help us not only to manage our energy security, but to also achieve our goal of clean energy. Why this dialogue can't be shifted in this direction, sir? Your take on that, please.
Thank you very much for giving me a chance to say something. I worked as senior researcher and registrar of companies court in commission. मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि जब समरमन जो न्यूक्लियर साइंटिस्ट हैं उन्हें ये दिया गया था सब्जेक्ट ये कोल का और बिजली का, उन्होंने कहा था कि हम बहुत जल्दी 50 साल तक तकरीबन बहुत ही सस्ती बिजली बना रहे हैं और बनाना शुरू भी कर दिया। इस तरह अफगानिस्तान है, कोल पे उन्होंने बिजली शुरू कर दी। तो हमारे यहाँ इस तरह के दावे क्यों करते हैं जिसका मतलब अमल दरामद नहीं होता। एक वक्त आपको याद होगा एक आदमी ने पानी से गाड़ी चलानी शुरू की थी और मिनिस्टर ने तस्दीक की थी कि मैंने चेक किया, बैठा था मिनिस्टर, और ये बिल्कुल पानी से अब चलेगी। वो बाद में पता चला सारा फेक है। तो वो बकौल उसके कि अल्लाह ताला जिसमें इरशाद फरमाते हैं वो कहते हैं कि वो बात क्यों कहते हो जिस पे अमल करते हो। इसमें मेरा बात है। थोड़ा सा इसमें इन क्वेश्चन के अंदर एक और भी क्वेश्चन था कि अगर उसको आप देख सकें तो वो ये था कि एक क्वेश्चन जिसका मेरे पास कोई आंसर नहीं है, लेकिन मुझे आप लोगों से ये पूछना है कि आप मुझे हेल्प कर दें। वो ये है कि कंट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान का जो एमिशन में है, कार्बन एमिशन में जो है वो हम कहते हैं कि जी इट्स लेस देन 1%, लेकिन क्लाइमेट इफेक्ट जो है वो उसमें हमारा जो है वो नंबर जो है वो 6th से 7th नंबर है दुनिया में। जब हम पॉलिसी मेकर से मिलते हैं तो वो हमसे पूछते हैं कि जब हम तो बिल्कुल कम कार्बन एमिशन में हमारा कम है, तो फिर जो है वो हमें जो है वो दुनिया क्यों प्रेस करती है। और फिर हमें ये भी समझ नहीं आती साइंटिफिकली कि हम उनको कैसे बताएं कि फिर हम क्लाइमेटली इफेक्ट कैसे हैं। तो कुछ तो है जो इसके दरमियान जो गैप है, और वो गैप जो है वो अगर आप मुझे बता दें तो मुझे बहुत आसानी होगी आइंदा की। बहुत शुक्रिया।
थैंक यू। पहले तो मैं
इनका क्वेश्चन के साथ ये थे इकट्ठे सारे
चले
मेरा नाम मोहम्मद दुर्जात है जी, और मैं इंजीनियर हूँ, पहाड़ों से आया हूँ, गिलगित से मैं आया हूँ। तो ये कंसर्न्स जो हैं बाहर की दुनिया की हमारी कार्बन एमिशन की बात अपनी जगह है, लेकिन प्रैक्टिकली हम अपने इलाके में वहाँ देखते हैं जहाँ ग्लेशियर्स हैं, वो भाई दरख्त कट रहे हैं सामने। वो चाचा अंग्रेज जो मर्जी के है ना, हमारे सामने तो दरख्त कट रहे हैं। अच्छा जी, क्यों काट रहे हो भाई? वही सर्दी है, माइनस में है, लोग अपने घर को हीटिंग के लिए, दे नीड फॉर हीटिंग, दे नीड इट फॉर कुकिंग, और उससे ऊपर यहाँ से कोटद्दू से जनाब तेल जाता है वहाँ, पानी वहां से जा रहा है, तेल से बिजली पैदा कर। अच्छा जी, फिर वो चाइना से जी कोयला आ रहा है। वो ये क्या है भाई? लोगों को चाहिए, लोगों को तो अपनी जिंदगी के लिए चाहिए ना। सो मैं लंबी बात नहीं करूंगा, एक्शंस की बात है भाई। आप इतना बड़ा एक्शन नहीं कर रहे हैं। आप जहां जहां मुनासिब है, जल्दी हो सकता है, थोड़े पैसों से अपने पैसों से हो सकता है, तो वहां तो एक्शन तो करें ना। अगर आपके पास जो है, मिसाल देता हूँ, 5,000 जी वो कह रहे हैं जी ग्लेशियर्स है, और यार 5,000 कम्युनिटी बेस्ड बिजली घर मत बनाओ, 5 तो बनाओ ना, rather than waiting for somebody else to come up with money. So बहुत शुक्रिया जी।
डॉक्टर बिशारत हसन, मैं क्लाइमेट चेंज मिटिगेशन और अल्टरनेटिव एनर्जी का खिदमतगार हूँ। हम फील्ड से बहुत सीखते रहते हैं और पॉलिसी तो स्पेशली। अब आपने जो इतनी सारी बातें हुई हैं, आई वुड लाइक टू क्लैरिफाई ऑन ईच एंड एवरी पॉइंट, क्योंकि मेरा इन सब से ताल्लुक रहा है और अभी भी है। आई एम वर्किंग एज अ जर्नलिस्ट एट द मोमेंट। आई एम सीनियर पॉलिटिकल एनालिस्ट एज वेल एज टेक्नोलॉजी एनालिस्ट। इसमें ऐसा है जी कि कोल की बात आपने की है। कोल का 2 प्रॉब्लम्स है हमारे मुल्क में। एक है पोल्यूशन और दूसरा है कि उसकी कॉस्ट, ये इम्पोर्टेड कोल की बात मैं कर रहा हूँ, उसकी कॉस्ट बहुत ज़्यादा है इम्पोर्ट की। आपका रुपया डिवैल्यू हो गया, जब ये आपने लगाए थे उस वक्त शायद 100 रुपये का था, अब 300 के करीब चला गया था, तो 3 गुना उसकी कीमत बढ़ गई है। आपके पास फॉरेन एक्सचेंज है नहीं, यू कैन नॉट इम्पोर्ट, आपके पास पैसे ही नहीं है, फॉरेन एक्सचेंज नहीं है। तो एक तो ये ख़त्म हो गया। दूसरी बात, आपके जो थर्मे लग रहे हैं, ऑल्दो आई एम एन एनवायरमेंटलिस्ट, लेकिन मैं एक पाकिस्तानी भी हूँ आधा सही, तो मैं समझता हूँ कि उस रिसोर्स को आपने यूटिलाइज करना है। लेकिन अगर आप एक्सपर्ट्स को हायर करेंगे तो वो आपको बताएंगे, मुझे हायर कर लें, ना हायर ना करें, मैं आपको खैरात में दे दूंगा अपनी कंसल्टेंसी, कि इसकी पोल्यूशन कैसे ख़त्म की जा सकती है। मैं ये टेक्नोलॉजीज लेकर आया हूँ बाहर से, और हमने यहाँ तो नहीं, बाहर अप्लाई की हुई। उसकी आप पोल्यूशन ख़त्म कर दें और उसको यूटिलाइज करें, और वो हो सकती है 90% तक तो ईजिली हो सकती है। आपने बात की थी समर बागमान साहब की, आई वॉज इन दैट कमेटी जिसमें उन्होंने अपनी सारी विपता सुनाई थी और रोए थे, और उनके साथ हमने काम भी किया। उन्होंने प्रोड्यूस कर ली थी गैसिफिकेशन के जरिए बिजली, लेकिन उस वक्त के जो प्लानिंग के मिनिस्टर थे और उस वक्त के प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे, उन्होंने उनके फंड्स रोक दिए। मैंने पर्सनली कोशिश करके किसी और तरफ से कहलवा कर ऊपर उनके फंड्स जारी करवाए। अगले दिन अखबारों में आ गया, प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने कहा कि हम इनके फंड्स जो है खोल रहे हैं। लेकिन जब 1 महीने बाद उनसे मुलाकात हुई, उन्होंने कहा जी फंड्स हमें सिर्फ वो खोले गए हैं कि उनकी तनख्वाहें जो स्टाफ की है वो दी जा सकें, टेक्नोलॉजी के लिए फंड रोक लिए गए। उसकी वजह, जब आप मुल्क में महंगी LNG लाना चाहते हैं, महंगे इंपोर्टेड कोल बेस्ड पावर प्लांट्स लगाना चाहते हैं, आप फॉसिल फ्यूल्स बेस्ड और तेल पे लगाना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि इनमें बहुत ज़्यादा कमीशन, अब पता नहीं मैं ये कह सकता हूँ कि नहीं, मैं टीवी पर तो खुलेआम कहता हूँ, ये आपको कमीशंस मिलते हैं इन प्लांट्स, पावर प्लांट्स पे। पहले उनको लगाने पर मिलते हैं और सबको मिलते हैं, उसमें ब्यूरोक्रेट्स भी हैं और सियासतदान भी हैं। फिर उनको चलाने पर मिलते हैं जो आप इंपोर्ट करते हैं गैस, और जो आप LNG जो आप इंपोर्ट करते हैं कोयला, और जो आप इंपोर्ट करते हैं तेल। तो इतना बड़ा सोने की कान है, बल्कि ये तो हीरों की कान है इन लोगों के लिए, कि वो कैसे चाहते कि यहाँ पर जो है ना कोई दूसरी टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप हो जाए, जैसे कि कोल गैसिफिकेशन की थी, जो कि 6 रुपए पर वो दे रहा था। दूसरा जो सबसे बड़ा जुल्म किया गया इस कौम के साथ, वो जो 2 पावर प्लांट पंजाब में लगाए गए। जब आप चाहें कि मेरी बातें आपको पसंद नहीं आ रही, मैं उसी वक्त रुक जाऊंगा, मैं एक एक चीज पे आपको जवाब दूंगा, क्योंकि ये हमारा उठना बैठना है, ओढ़ना बिछोड़ना है, एंड आई एम ऑल्सो क्वालिफाइड टू टॉक ऑन दिस। ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, आपने पावर प्लांट्स लगा दिए पंजाब में, कोयला आता है डीजल के ट्रकों पे, किधर? पंजाब। अब डीजल की कीमत भी उसी तरह 3 गुना बढ़ गई। ट्रांसपोर्टेशन की जो कॉस्ट है वो आप उसमें ऐड करते हैं, फिर वो बिजली में आप ये जो इसको क्या कहते हैं, पास थ्रू, फिर आप हमसे आपसे लेते हैं ये पैसे, जिसकी वजह से टैरिफ आसमान पर पहुंच गया। और ये गरीब आदमी जो है खत्म है बिल्कुल, इंडस्ट्री आपकी बंद हो रही है, ज्यादातर तो हो गई है, ये अब बहुत थोड़े दिन रह गए। फिर वो कहता है एक खड़े होकर सियासतदान के हम 300 जो है यूनिट फ्री देंगे, दूसरा कहता है हम जो इसको इतने कम करेंगे वो करेंगे। मेरे पास इन तीनों के मैनिफेस्टो सामने होते हैं जब मैं टीवी पर बात करता हूँ। अभी इलेक्शन की जो मैराथन ट्रांसमिशन थी, हमने 12-12 घंटे इनको सुनाया है। वो 300 यूनिट कैसे देगा? ये पैसा एक नहीं है खजाने में, IMF जो है वो करने नहीं दे रहा। ये क्या करेगा? ये बिजली को महंगा करेगा, और उसमें ये कहेगा कि जो मिडिल क्लास है ये तो बहुत अमीर है, मेरे और आप जैसे, ये तो बहुत अमीर है, इनसे पैसे लो और गरीबों को 300 यूनिट फ्री दे दो, और कारखानेदारों को आधी कीमत पे दे दो। ये जो कारखानेदार इस वक्त बैठे हुए हैं आपकी केयर टेकर गवर्नमेंट में, इन्होंने अपने लिए बना लिया था, वो तो IMF ने रोक दिया, वरना इनको 50% पे गैस और बिजली मिलती। इन्होंने बाकायदा कैबिनेट से अप्रूव करा लिया था, IMF ने रोक दिया। यह भी 3-4 दिन पहले की बात है, आपके इल्म में होगी। तो वो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन वहां से, ये जो पंजाब में लगाने का, पहली बात तो ये है कि ये किसने इसकी फिजिबिलिटी की थी, किसने इसकी अप्रूवल दी थी, वो सारे शामिल हैं इसमें। जो कौम को, ये तो सिर्फ कोयले की बात हो रही है, और भी अभी आएंगे LNG पर ना, वो LNG वाले आप अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं, वो भी दोनों बंद होंगे, ये भी दोनों बंद होंगे। आप इनको रिटायर करें ना करें, ये सेल्फ रिटायर हो जाएंगे, हो गए हैं बल्कि। आप चला ही नहीं सकते, आपके पास इम्पोर्टेड कोल का पैसा ही नहीं है।
Excuse me, sir, if you can just quickly wrap up. Actually, we are running
वो
over
मैं कह रहा था
time.
ना, जब आप रोकना चाहें मुझे रोक देंगे, ये बातें अच्छी नहीं लगती लोग।
It's a humble
मैं
request.
तो आपको
It's just,
सारी फिगर्स दे रहा हूँ, इनकी जीबी की बात मैं कर दूं।
it's just in
बस
interest of time.
आप इतना ही बर्दाश्त कर सकते थे, बस ठीक है। No, bilaterally I don't want to discuss. You can see my TV programs. मेरे पास इतना वक्त
Sure.
नहीं है कि मैं bilaterally डिस्कस करूं। मैं तो इतने यहाँ पे लोग आए हुए थे तो मैं बता रहा था।
Thank you, sir. Yeah, sure. Ali Saab.
अगर मुझे 2-3 मिनट दे दे ताकि मैं इन क्यूरीज को क्विकली रिस्पॉन्ड कर देता हूँ। पहले तो डॉक्टर साहब ने बड़ा वेरी करेक्टली पॉइंटेड आउट द की इश्यूज। पहले है चीपर एंड अफोर्डेबिलिटी, cost and effectiveness. Third coal, I am challenging here today. It is the cheapest ever energy source of the Pakistan. और जो हम IMF के पास, डॉक्टर साहब ने भी बड़ा बताया कि $5 बिलियन के लिए तरले कर रहे हैं। हम सिर्फ अपनी कोल की जो फ्लीट है, हमारे जो 10,000 मेगावाट अगर हमने इंडिजिनस में कन्वर्ट कर लिए तो हम सेव कर लिए $5 बिलियन एनुअली। पहली बात, हमने भी खैरात आज से छोड़ दें। अच्छा, उसका टैरिफ क्या है नोट कर लें, ₹3.8 फ्यूल कास्ट कंपोनेंट TCP1 का, जो अभी मैंने बताया शंघाई का। अब आ जाए इंटरनेशनली, हमारे पास इंडिया में कौन से कितने अल्ट्रा सुपर क्रिटिकल और एडवांस सुपर क्रिटिकल टेक्नोलॉजी प्लांट्स चल रहे हैं ना। चाइना में 4,75,000 मेगावाट चल रहे हैं, हम 5,000 मेगावाट पे हमें करेंगे बंद करें और फेज आउट करें। पहला तो ये है कि चीपर में तो मैंने चैलेंज कर दिया कि चीपर इससे ज्यादा नहीं होगा। अब आ जाए सोलर के ऊपर के सोलर, आई एम सॉरी अकील भी बैठे हैं, लेकिन सोलर इज नॉट अ सॉल्यूशन। अगेन हमारा फॉरेन एक्सचेंज ड्रेन हो जाएगा। हम या तो अपने प्लांट लगाए ना, यहाँ पे हमारे अपना रिसोर्स है जो फ्यूल है, हम इसको कर सकते हैं। ना सिर्फ ये ₹3.80 की जो बिजली अब जनरेट कर रहे हैं इसको हम इंसेंटिवाइज करें, बल्कि हम एक्सपोर्ट करना शुरू कर दें। यही कोल जो इंडोनेशिया है एक्सपोर्ट करके हमारे लकी को दे रहा है, इंडिया को दे रहा है, बाहर दे रहा है। हम क्यों चुप करके बैठे हुए हैं? हमारे पास खैरात मांग रहे हैं इधर उधर IMF के पास, ये थोड़ा सा पॉलिटिकल ना हो जाए, लेकिन उसको हम देख लेंगे किस तरह से कर सकते हैं। सोलर के लिए बेहतर ये है कि हम अपना फॉरेन एक्सचेंज जो है उसको सिक्योर करें। अभी ये टाइम नहीं है, या तो हम अपना $300-400 मिलियन का इंडिजिनस जो है ना एक इंडस्ट्री लगाए, वहां से जो सोलर आए हम लोगों को कहे गवर्नमेंट शुड नॉट कम फॉरवर्ड, वो उसको अपने ही जो सीलिंग सिस्टम है उसके ऊपर अपना अपना लगाए और अपनी एनर्जी खुद से जनरेट करें। गवर्नमेंट का रिसोर्स इसके ऊपर जाया करने की, ये मेरा पर्सनल है, PPIB की तरफ से नहीं है, ये मेरी पर्सनल राय है। अच्छा, जो 200-300 मेगावाट का ये भी पॉलिटिकली था, एक स्लोगन था, लेकिन इसमें मैं एक चीज बता देता हूँ कि थर में ये हुआ कि उन्होंने कहा कि थर के जो जहाँ कोल पावर प्लांट्स लगेंगे उनको बिजली फ्री मिलेगी। दैट वाज प्रूव्ड बाय द अनाउंसमेंट जो की थी बिलाल भुट्टो ने। उनको 4-4, 5-5 पैनल दे के उनके घर जो है उनको घर भी बना दिए और उनको इलेक्ट्रिसिटी दे दी। फर्दर उन्होंने हेस्को से, बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, किसी ने गवर्नमेंट का जो शेयर था वो हर महीने का बिल, बात वही है कि पब्लिक सेक्टर से ही निकल रहे हैं पैसे, हेस्को को पे हो रहा है। 300 यूनिट जो वहाँ थर के जो इफेक्टिव थे उनको बिजली मिल रही है, वो मिल रही है। अब टेक्नोलॉजीज है हमारे पास, दुनिया वर्ल्ड बैंक, IFC और ADB और सारे आ रहे हैं कि जी हमें इनको फेज आउट करें। वाई फेज आउट? कार्बन कैप्चरिंग प्रोसेस में लगाए और इनको चलने दें, हम अपनी इकोनॉमी, हम अपने पाँव पे खड़े हो। ये नहीं है कि दुनिया की तरफ देख के कि जी दुनिया में यूरोप ने ये किया, उसने ये किया। मैंने अभी भी आपसे शेयर भी किया कि ये तो देखो ना कि कार्बन में पाकिस्तान का शेयर क्या है और चाइना क्या है, वियतनाम क्या है, ये सारा पूरे हर मुल्क का पिक्चर है। मैंने नहीं बनाई, इंटरनेशनल एनर्जी एजेंसी ने बनाई है। उनको देखें और पाकिस्तान के पास उसके हाथ बांधने आ गए कि जी 5,000 मेगावाट इसको बंद करें क्योंकि अपने पाँव पे चल ना सके। हमारी इंडस्ट्री क्रिपल हो गई, बंद हो गई है। अब हमारे पास ₹3.80 वाले यूनिट को इग्नोर करें, उसको पीछे करें, ₹48 यूनिट जो है उसको चला रहे हैं। क्यों चला रहे हैं? उसके ऊपर भी मेरिट ऑर्डर में और उसकी वायलेशन हो रही है। नेपरा उसको बार बार NTDC को फाइन कर रहा है, पेनल्टीज लगा रहा है। ये सिस्टम हमें स्टेबलाइज करना है, NTDC के सिस्टम को स्टेबलाइज करना है और हमें फर्दर आना है। अब आ जाए एक और कि टेक्नोलॉजिकली हमारे पास रिसोर्स है, 100 साल तक चल सकता है, 200 साल तक। तो इसको हम इस कोल को कोल टू लिक्विड एंड कोल टू गैस इमीडिएटली कन्वर्ट करें कोल टू गैस। अच्छा, पूरी गवर्नमेंट और हम सारे पब्लिक सेक्टर वाले बैठ के देख रहे हैं इधर उधर के, चाइना आएगा, वो आएगा, हमें आके इन्वेस्टमेंट देगा तो फिर हम आगे बढ़ेंगे। व्हाट वी आर डूइंग, हमारे पास एक्सपर्टीज नहीं है, हमारे पास साइंटिस्ट भी है, सब कुछ है, हर कुछ सब कुछ कर सकते हैं हम, इंडिविजुअली खुद ही लग जाए तो कर देंगे। लेकिन हम सिर्फ रिलाई कर रहे हैं इंटरनेशनल एजेंसीज के ऊपर, डोनर्स के ऊपर, कुछ चीजें कि वहां से पैसे आएगी, फंडिंग आएगी तो हम करेंगे। और इसी वजह से 40 साल हम पीछे रहे और थरकोल को इग्नोर करते रहे। समर मुबारक की बात पे आ जाए 2 मिनट के लिए। समर मुबारक ने इन सिचु गैसिफिकेशन की थी कि अंडरग्राउंड, लेकिन वो एक्सपेरिमेंट कामयाब नहीं हुआ। इसमें सर मैं पॉइंट आउट भी कर देता हूँ कि मैं उसकी जो इंक्वायरी कमेटी थी उसका मेंबर भी था, तो उसमें कुछ टेक्निकल इश्यूज थे और सुप्रीम कोर्ट में भी हम लैंड कर गए थे, वहाँ पे भी क्लैरिफिकेशन की थी, क्योंकि उसने जो डीजल जनरेटर भी लगाए थे तो उस गैस जो प्रोड्यूस कर रहा था 150 BTUs पर क्यूबिक थी।
देखिए ये
That was not
टेक्नोलॉजी,
sustainable.
ये टेक्नोलॉजी मैंने ही ला कर दी थी ऑस्ट्रेलिया से, टेक्नोलॉजी प्रूवन है। और वो तो कोई और वजह थी, मैंने आपको बताया, इन्होंने LNG पर प्लांट्स लाने थे, इंपोर्टेड कोल पर लाने थे, इसलिए उसको खत्म कर दिया गया।
बस उस कंट्रोवर्सी में हम नहीं पढ़ते।
हाँ, इसमें ना
अब
पड़ा
आ
जाता।
जाए पॉल्यूशन और उसके ऊपर कि हमने कहा कि हमने जो प्लांट लगाए हैं डबल कास्ट पे, नॉर्मल पे नहीं, जो इंटरनेशनली प्राइस है उससे डबल। रीजन क्या था? रीजन ये था कि उसमें फ्लू गैसेस को हमने ट्रीट किया था। FGD प्लांट भी लगाए थे, उसके लिए इलेक्ट्रिसिटी प्रेसिपिटेटर भी लगाए, सोफास भी लगाए, ताकि हम मैक्सिमम कंट्रोल कर सकें। अभी भी 99.9% इमिशन कंट्रोल है चिमनी से। अगर देखें 2 ऑप्शन है मेरे पास, वीडियोस भी हैं, कोई कहेगा तो मैं शेयर भी करूंगा। उसमें 110 मेगावाट का पोर्ट कासिम के इलेक्ट्रिक का प्लांट चल रहा है और 1320 का है जो पोर्ट कासिम का प्रोजेक्ट चल रहा है कोल का।
ये मैं
उसकी
मेरा
1/10 है
फील्ड है, मैं आपको बता दूं 90% तक आप कर सकते हैं, इससे ज्यादा आप नहीं कर सकते। 99.9 तो वो आपको नजर नहीं आ रहा होगा।
हाँ।
लेकिन गैसेस जा रही हैं।
अच्छा, उसमें बस आखिरी है साहिवाल का आ जाए कि साहिवाल इट वाज द पंजाब गवर्नमेंट्स इनिशिएटिव, इसमें लिखा हुआ है। वो ट्राईपार्टाइट में हमारे पास जब उन्होंने फिजिबिलिटी अप्रूव करके LOI दे के LOS के लिए PPIB के पास आया, देन PPIB वाज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली बाउंड एज पर पॉलिसी टू प्रोसेस फर्दर। हाउएवर वी आर वेरी वेल अवेयर, अब इन प्रोजेक्ट्स को इतने बड़े $1.5 से $2 बिलियन की इन्वेस्टमेंट हो गई, इसको भी हमारा प्रपोजल माय पर्सनल ओपिनियन में ये है कि इनको हम इमीडिएटली 30, 40, $50 मिलियन खर्च करके इनको भी थर्कोल पे कन्वर्ट कर लें, तो इनका फौरन जो फ्यूल कास्ट को 28 रुपए 30 रुपए उससे 3-4 रुपए पे आ जाएगा और ये सस्टेनेबल हो जाएंगे।
हर कोल आपको पता है ना लिग्नाइट है।
यस,
ट्रांसपोर्टेशन के लिए
yes,
उसके
it is.
स्पेशल आपको जो है
No,
ट्रांसपोर्टेशन चाहिए।
no, I'm challenging here because we have practiced. वो कोल हम लकी को दे रहे हैं थर से ट्रांसपोर्ट कर, और पीजू सीमेंट तक यहाँ तक आ रहा है कोहाड़ तक। अगर वो ट्रांसपोर्ट हो तो ट्रांसपोर्टेबिलिटी इज नॉट ए बिग इशू। आफ्टर 45 डेज, जब 45 दिन को उसको कहीं घुमाते फिराते रहेंगे, उसके बाद उसके स्पॉन्टेनियस कंबशन के इश्यूज आ सकते हैं। अदरवाइज 30 डेज तक इट इज कैपेबल। इट्स फिनिश सर। yes studies, yes there are so many reports।
नहीं, मैं भी आपको जो है
RW की स्टडी
बात बता रहा हूँ वो किसी नॉलेज की बेसिस
सर, मैं RW की स्टडी
आप
आपको
ना लगे तो ना
latest-
लगे 45 दिन, लगे तो अगले दिन लग जाएगी, पहली दफा में लग जाएगी।
सर,
बात ये होती है कि ये जब ऑक्सीजन के साथ ये इंटरेक्ट करता है
मैं
ना,
इसमें
तो आप
क्योंकि टाइम कम है, मैं अपनी जिंदगी के 16 साल जो है ना लाखड़ा में भी बिता चुका। वहां पे ये इशू बड़ा सीवियर होता था, जो लाखड़ा पावर प्लांट बंद हो गया। उसमें स्पॉन्टेनियस कंबशन ये है कि जब एक स्टेज होती है, कोल का लंप जो है वो डिसइंटीग्रेशन स्टार्ट करता है, तो उससे वोलेटाइल मैटर एवापोरेट होना शुरू कर देता है, उसमें खुद ब खुद आग लगना शुरू हो जाती है। वो एक पीरियड होता है, वो कब होता है? 30 डेज के बाद वो स्टार्ट होता है, उससे पहले कोल। अच्छा, अभी
ट्रांसपोर्टेशन के लिए स्पेशल SOPs हैं दुनिया में जो होते हैं। पाकिस्तान में सब कुछ होता है ना, यहाँ तो कैंसर की इलाज भी दे रहा होता है जो है कि होम्योपैथ बैठा हुआ है, यहाँ तो सब कुछ भी हो सकता है। लेकिन ये है कि जो दुनिया में SOPs हैं वो उसका वो बता रहा हूं।
I'll just quickly take Basit's response to something. Basit, please be brief.
Ji,
about it,
sorry,
and
Ben,
then we'll
just
go towards the
quickly.
concluding remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just quickly wanted to mention some things. I think mentioned हुई थी my colleague from PPIB mentioned about local coal being the cheapest because मैं भी मेरे सामने ही बिल्कुल नेप्रा की वो खुली हुई है power purchase prices for the next year. I think he's referring to the energy purchase price. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir, because agar hum capacity and energy purchase price, I take it together, so local coal is not the cheapest anymore, right? It's 24 rupees and about 15 to 16 rupees जो है आपके पास solar का जो है वो tariff बन रहा है.
मैं अभी इसका जवाब दे देता हूँ आपको, अगर
जी
अलो
जी
करें. उसमें
जी जी
कैपेसिटी प्राइस संक प्राइसेस हैं, क्योंकि वो जो पहले साल में हमारे 45 थी वो कम होके अब 30 आ गई है, क्योंकि अभी जो टेरिफ है पहले साल में जब नई चीज बनाते हैं, यही बात मैं कह रहा था कि पैनल भी अपने बनाए. पहले साल में जब थर्कोल निकला था $67 पर टन ट्रेड हो रहा था, अब वो $40 पे आ गया, 44 पे. अगले स्टेप में नेक्स्ट स्टेप जब फिफ्थ एक्सटेंशन में चला जाएगा तो ये $20 पे चला जाएगा. इंटरनेशनली सबसे कम हमें सस्ता चीपर फ्यूल होगा अवेलेबल, और इलेक्ट्रिसिटी प्राइस वो 1 सेंट.
नहीं
अच्छा, दोनों
सर
चीजें मिला
सर
भी लेंगे तो 5 सेंट से
मैं
कम
जस्ट
होगी
एक
सर.
क्लैरिटी, आई जस्ट वांटेड टू हैव अ क्लैरिटी. आप इससे काइंडली अगर सोलर के टैरिफ के साथ कंपेयर कर दें या विंड का जो भी रिसेंटली 4 सेंट्स
कर
पे
दें.
अगर आता है, तो आप मुझे बताएं कि कैपेसिटी एंड एनर्जी
मैं
परचेज प्राइस के साथ यू आर सेइंग कि इट्स गोइंग टू बी चीपर.
अभी जो उन्होंने आईजी सेप का जो उन्होंने ट्रायल रन किया था, उसमें उन्होंने उसकी कोल पावर प्रोजेक्ट्स की प्राइस, जो कैपेसिटी प्राइस अज्यूम की थी, वो थी 2 बिलियन, $2 मिलियन पर मेगावाट. जिसको उसको रेशनाइज जब किया, नेपरा ने कहा कि नहीं 1.4 से अब वो नहीं होगी, तो उसका $4.5 सेंट्स पर किलोवाट आवर आ गया लेवलाइज टेरिफ. तो वो इक्विवेलेंट था ऑलमोस्ट सोलर के लमसम में, जो है ना. वो सारी अजम्पशन सेम जो है ना उसको की. ये मैं अपनी बात नहीं कर रहा, आईजी सेप का जो ट्रायल रन हुआ है उस कमेटी में मैं खुद भी मेंबर हूँ, उसी की बात कर रहा हूँ. उसमें हुआ था तो इक्वलाइज हो रहा था. लेकिन बात ये है कि इंटरनेशनली हमने सस्टेन करना है, यहाँ बैठना है. दुनिया को ऐसे नहीं है कि हम अपनी डायरेक्शन सेट करनी है. उस चीज़ों को मद्देनजर रखते हुए हम यूनिक डायरेक्शन कोई मूव नहीं करना चाहते. तो उन चीज़ों को हमने किया है कि नहीं, हम सिर्फ कोल को नहीं, हम रिन्यूएबल को ले आएंगे, 60% वो ले आएंगे, लेकिन बेस लोड के लिए हम सिर्फ रिलाई करेंगे अपने लोकल थर्कोल को.
बेस लोड
जी
में
बिल्कुल
हाइडल है ना?
लेकिन बेस लोड में
बिल्कुल.
वो हाइडल को इसीलिए नहीं कर सकते, उसमें भी इंटरमिटेंसी
नहीं, ये
आती है.
जो
वो
60
40%
ना,
से.
ये जो 60% है इसमें 30% हाइडल है.
यस. यस,
30% जो है ना
just
यू आर
वो
करेक्ट,
just
यू
to
आर
close
करेक्ट.
my
Thank you.
just to close my comment, Zainab, just quickly मैं इसमें मजीद फिर हम बाद में डिस्कशन कर लेते हैं, बट आई जस्ट थिंक कि हमें कुछ चीज़ें जो हैं वो आई अंडरस्टैंड दिस होल डिस्कशन फ्रॉम द कोल फेज आउट हैज टर्न टू व्हाई वी नीड कोल, विच एसेंशियली हमें जो है वो डिस्कशन करनी चाहिए थी कि चैलेंजेस क्या हैं, कितनी फाइनेंस रिक्वायर्ड है. वो चैलेंजेस ज़रूर डिस्कस हुए हैं वहाँ से, बट हमें जो है वो एक किस्म का एक वो डिस्कशन मिल गई है कि कहाँ व्हाई वी नीड टू गो टुवर्ड्स कोल. तो आई थिंक इसमें हमें दो तीन चीज़ें मुझे क्विकली बस वो मेंशन करनी है. एक तो कि जो प्राइस की बात कर रहे हैं सर, आईजी सेप को बिल्कुल कर रहे हैं. आईजी सेप में बहुत सी एजम्पशंस की चेक हैं. वी हैव ऑलरेडी डन अ स्टडी. वो तो मतलब बेसिक कमिटेड प्लांट्स को कहते हैं कि जी वो ₹0 पे बन रहे हैं, जिसके फाइनेंशियल क्लोज नहीं हुए हुए. तो आई थिंक उसके बहुत से एजम्पशंस चेक हैं जिनको चेक करने वाले हैं. सेकेंडली आई थिंक जो हमारे पास सीसीएस, सीटीजी, सीटीएल, डिफरेंट टेक्नोलॉजीज का जिक्र हुआ है. देखें, इन सब टेक्नोलॉजीज जो हैं दीज आर नॉट समथिंग जो कि कमर्शियली आपके पास अभी अवेलेबल हो पाकिस्तान में. आपके पास सोलर विंड आपके पास टेस्टेड है, मेच्योर टेक्नोलॉजीज हैं, दे आर अवेलेबल. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट बेस लोड 28 गीगावाट जो है वो आपके पास ऑलरेडी थर्मल फ्लीट अवेलेबल है. आपके पास पीक कैपेसिटी जो समर्स में जाती है वो 27 गीगावाट है. और कितना हमें बेस लोड चाहिए? अगर हमें और बेस लोड चाहिए तो वो किस बेसिस पे आ रहा है, किस एजम्पशंस पे आ रहा है? वी नीड टू स्टार्ट वर्किंग ऑन दैट, वी नीड टू स्टार्ट गेट दोज नंबर्स राइट, rather than ये कि just हम arbitrarily कह लें कि we need for base load, we need it for this. Yes, definitely, but remember हमारा renewables का share is just 5 to 6%. That's it. हम यहाँ पे कोई अभी 10, 15, 20% पे नहीं पहुंचे despite the targets being 30%. So I think हमें चीज़ों को थोड़ा सा contextualize करने की ज़रूरत है. We are aiming for जहाँ पे भी हम जाना चाह रहे हैं, लेकिन हमें जो अभी करंटली है सिचुएशन कोई बहुत अमेजिंग भी नहीं है रिन्यूएबल्स के लिहाज से. जस्ट टू गिव माय फीडबैक ऑन दैट. विद दैट आई विल रेस्ट, बट थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank you, Basit. We'll just wrap up this roundtable discussion now. I would request Ubaidur Rahman, sir, Head of Energy Unit, to give his concluding remarks. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Zainab, and thank you all the panelists, the speakers, as well as for very interactive discussion. So I think let me just very quickly, just in interest of time, very quickly. I mean, the idea behind having the debate today was not basically to just say that okay, yeah, we can just go for the coal retirement the next day. The idea was to basically to generate the debate like when could it actually start making the sense? I mean, the overall RE transition perspective, the coal retirement, if it makes sense, and definitely some of the very important pertinent challenges highlighted by Akib Saab. I'll be briefly touching upon them, that in the presence of these challenges, because I think the study that SDPI has did highlights the cost, IFA has done the study that highlights the cost, and there's very large substantial amount of financing that is actually required if we have to move in that direction. So how we're actually going to mobilize that, that's actually going to very important. So I mean, the idea was not just to say that let's just phase out the coal power plants, but how does this thing start making that sense? I think even the study that SDPI has just recently done will be actually sharing the preliminary findings with each one of you. And to everyone, especially Akisab, we will actually request you to also respond on the study as well, like what assumptions or the test parameters you actually think are not in line. And I think definitely the quantitatives is one thing, but I'll be touching upon the another side on this as well. But I think what AIFA has mentioned, Basit has also highlighted the renewables first study, and both of these points to the direction that definitely in the short term there is no solution. We have to look what makes things in the longer run as well. And I think very right thing, most of the mentions, Zafar Saab has mentioned, even the Zainab yourself has mentioned that COP28 has some very key developments, and perhaps this is Michael also highlighted those points that we need to think that in the line of the tripling of renewable energy and the commitments declaration that have been made at COP28, how does Pakistan, or how should Pakistan's situation or position itself to harness the opportunities that does exist? Because I mean, frankly, at the same time, we cannot go for, I mean, taking the large sum of global financing or tap into the global financing that is available, and at the same time keep on rapidly expanding our coal power fleet, because that won't eventually add up. Secondly, I think some very important points have been highlighted. Again, taking lead from what Akid Saab has also mentioned, that we need to understand that the coal power projects in Pakistan, they have a very young fleet. They have a long-term PPAs. The plants are efficient and also operating on these high merit as well. And also, I think one aspect we also perhaps didn't discuss in very detail was that these plants have a very strong legal aspect and a legal cover over them, and we definitely cannot go by, I mean, sort of changing them. So we have to definitely honor those commitments as well. But I guess at the same times, we also need to develop or assess on what makes economically the case in the longer run as well. I think Michael highlighted the perspective as well. So this is also one debate that needs to be further developed. I think eventually coming to the point of Ubaid Saab, I think was mentioned that eventually the goal of everyone sitting over here, whether it's a PPIB, whether it's a CSOs or any other partners, the eventual goal here is to eventually come up with the practical solution that can at the end reduce the cost for the consumers or who's actually using the electricity. And I think one point which Asad mentioned from CPPA is very important, that perhaps in the overall planning process in these different financial models, definitely the CSOs do bring this cost, but perhaps the public sector also needs to highlight that to bring in the cost of externalities into the planning process of the public sector as well. Asad also highlighted some of the very key points around this as well. So I think again, just one point which Ali Saab also mentioned, and I think I also saw the debate coming around the gasification as well as the carbon capture and storage technologies. I think this is the points are important, but one thing which again has to be considered is that both of these technologies, if we talk about carbon capture and storage, that's very high, extremely a high cost there as well. Even the gasification initiative, which is also present in the NDCs as well as some other documents as well, I think the one challenge which would actually come up is that it's again actually going to increase the production cost of the electricity, because the technologies are not that cheap. So I think just coming to one of the more important points, or perhaps from my end, ending it to a point that the narrative again needs to be further developed. We need to look at how do we sort of realign all these things. Political engagement, Ubaid Saab mentioned, is extremely important. We need to come up around those lines as well, that what actually needs to be driven after the consensus. So the stakeholder dialogues, this consensus around this point is extremely important. So, I mean, again, Akhil Saab very rightly mentioned that definitely Pakistan did this. I mean, there's a cost of being a lagger, and Pakistan sort of missed the train. I mean, definitely the India, the China, they developed their economies using the coal, but I think perhaps that was a time when coal was the cheapest source. But I think as of now, the situation we're in, there is definitely renewables are at par with them, and in some context even cheaper. We can definitely discuss the number that Kitsab as well as Basit highlighted later as well. So I think again, the idea is to sort of again generate the debate and build the consensus and sort of just bring those things into the planning. And I think, Ubaid, I would actually request anyone to respond to the question that Ubaid Shah has mentioned around the Pakistan being one of the most, I guess, vulnerable country, and at the same time we're also sort of contributing just hardly 1% to the global emissions. So how does that thing comes into the narrative when he's discussing the political landscape? So yeah, but I think we can bilaterally discuss this once the discussion ends as well. So again, back to you, Zainab. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Ved. I think Dr. Khalid wants to say something.
Yeah, I would just like to, thank you all of the panelists and the participants, and we can maybe add Ubaid Saab's questions as a starting point of the report, just to bring sense or bring the economic feasibility or bankability of early retirement of coal fleet in Pakistan, so that we can take it catering sustainability debate as well as the economic feasibility, as well as the energy sectors, the base load or other sort of arguments, just to make sense. In terms of thanking, I would say that SDPI's vision written in front of you is being the center of excellence on sustainable development, policy research, capacity development, and advocacy in Pakistan. I guess we would be continuing doing these sort of stakeholder engagements so that the narrative on sustainability, narrative on equitable development, narrative on green technologies, and sustainable sort of development, including renewable energy, phasing out fossil fuel, aligning us with the agenda on conference of parties and other environmental agendas and macroeconomic debate that is incorporating more and more green practices and sustainability into account. That is the aim of SDPI as well. So we would be keep on conducting these sort of stakeholder dialogues so that everybody is part of the solution and we can have this integrated sort of debate. With this, thank you so much, everybody, sir, for coming from and highlighting the PPIB's point. Akil Saab, you are always so generous to us. Thank you so much, everyone. Looking forward to having an excellent debate in the future as well. So, thank you.